Well, it's good to see everyone. Good to see you, Coach.
Good seeing you, Mike.
How excited are you to kind of get the taste out of your mouth from last season and really get back to work again?
Yeah, I'm excited just to, I'm excited about this team. I was actually excited about last year's team at this time. Somebody just said, this time last year we had our first Zoom meeting, at this time. So, it's kind of weird. I was still in Hawaii. People were running to the Sam's Club to get toilet paper. I mean, a year at this time, it was obviously super chaotic. So where we're at right now, I mean, we're obviously still long ways to go, but I feel better with a lot of things. I feel better about football. And Wags and he asked me a couple of days ago, like if I was to go back with the same knowledge that I have right now, like if I was to go back with the same information that I had at the same time, would I change anything? I would do the exact same thing. Now, if I'd go back in time with the information I have now, obviously I would change. But I feel good about pressing forward. I feel good about we're going to be able to practice normal. We're going to have, spring ball. We're going to be able to do that normal. So I'm excited about that, Mike, just that we're going to be able to have a normal spring ball. I was thinking about a big part last year's, and Ivan knows this, was quarterback play. And I was thinking a little bit about Malcolm. Even some people like, well, he made a big jump from one year to the other. And I think a big part of that jump was going against Newberry's defense during spring ball. You know what I mean? Just being able to go against them every day for whatever, 4 weeks, seeing Newberry's voodoo helped us help Malcolm get ready. And we're obviously counting on, then you think of the guys that we had coming last year, Tiger and those quarterbacks last year, Mike, none of them really had a ton of meaningful reps. So we're like, oh, that's fine. We'll go through spring ball. So those guys didn't get it. So we're encouraged that this year, those guys are going to have spring practice and we're going to go against each other. Those guys will be able to do that. We'll be able to practice. We're going to be able to have fall ball too. So that's what I'm encouraged about that. And it wasn't, Wags had mentioned something which kind of, I guess it's term, I didn't learn the hard way. I knew what would happen if we didn't practice. It wasn't like, okay, I wonder how we're going to be if we don't practice physically. I mean, I knew, but I wasn't going to jeopardize our players and our program. Again, this was a year ago, and I just wasn't going to do that. I was like, you know what, I'd rather err on the side of caution. But this year, with testing, a third of our brigade's already been vaccinated. I mean, we're going to be able to go. So that's what I'm encouraged about, Mike. Just it's going to be back to normal football, which is encouraging.
Usually when you're at this point of a season, your seniors have had a chance to kind of establish themselves as the leaders of the team. And so with all the restrictions on the brigade and whatnot, have they had that chance to do that yet? Have you seen anything out of the senior class that lets you know one way or another how they're shaping up?
What I've learned through these things is these Zoom calls can be valuable. You just can't oversaturate it. You know what I mean? Because if not, everybody comes off with their icons off. You know what I mean? You join all these Zoom calls and your icons off. I mean, this is the world we live in. Sometimes we have our icons on, sometimes you have them on or off. And when you're a ton of them, you just leave you check out, so to speak. And so, but it's very valuable in doing this. So what we've tried to do, Mike, we've had at night we've been having team meetings, but they're really short. So they're 30-minute meetings. There's a 10-minute Kool-Aid by a player, which is a motivational talk. There's a 10-minute of football. One of the coaches will give that. And then there's a 10-minute Kool-Aid. So it's to the point, and we've been doing the last couple of weeks, probably some of the best meetings I've ever been in. I mean, our coaches would come like, man, could you imagine last night? Did you, Diego's Kool-Aid, that was awesome. Did you hear Coop's Kool-Aid last night? these guys, they got their PowerPoint presentation, they got their videos, because we're all learning how to use this now, and some of the stuff that they've been able to share. So I guess it's a long answer to your question, Mike. Recognizing that these guys got to establish that, I've been looking for forums where they could do that because we're not in a locker room. And learning from last year, Zoom meetings are important. You just got to be careful that you don't do too many of them. They're not too long. You have a purpose, you have a plan. And we've been doing these last couple of weeks to build a foundational team. And I couldn't be more excited. I mean, just some of these motivational speeches that some of our players, man, I wish I would have recorded them. They've been great.
Usually when you start spring practice, the defense is ahead of the offense for the most part, because there's so much going into the offense in terms of timing and execution that they have to kind of get up to game speed with. You didn't really have a chance last year to establish that foundation. Does that make it any more difficult to do so this year?
I think every team's different. Like you said, we had no foundation. Like somebody is asking me, like, I thought Coach Newberry and the defense did a great job midway through the season. Towards the end part, we were playing really, really good on defense. I mean, as good as we've ever played, but we never got to go on offense. How come we can't go? How come we can't get the quarterback going? And I was trying to explain to them, option football, for a guy to get used to those stunts, you need live reps. I mean, you need somebody running at him full speed and whacking him, or coming at you and tackling you. We couldn't do that during the season. I'm not going to do that the week of the Tulsa week or the week of the Memphis week to get him ready. I mean, they wouldn't be there. So it was hard to explain to some people, like, how come the quarterback can't get ready? Because some of the things you go through, the only way you can do it is through seeing, like we call it a blood stunt, where it's a hard stunt with read key and pitch key. There's no way possible that you can do that unless they're live reps. None. You can't simulate it. Just the art that Keenan made looks effortlessly. I mean, for 4 years and all the quarterbacks that Ivan's coached over the years, you see people try to bring them hard stunts, and I mean, it's effortless. But that's going against the defense, during spring ball and during camp, and somebody coming hitting you in the face, because the speed of all of that stuff, you can't simulate it. And Mike, going against our defense, I mean, to me, it's the ultimate test going against Newberry's defense. The spring, as good as we were on offense, 2019, we couldn't move the ball against our defense, man. We struggled all spring. There might be a day or a period we might do well, but we struggled moving the ball against Coach Newberry's defense. So I'm excited about going, because I know it's what Xavier needs. It's what Jaden and Ty and Messiah, our quarterbacks, need. They need to see Newberry's guys moving all over the place, coming off the edge hard. Because the other stuff you can get, but the quarterback stuff is the stuff that you can only do live, and so I think that it's definitely going to help us. I don't know if it's not having that year, I guess, to your question, will it hurt us? I don't know, but it's a new team. Xavier, he came and, all Xavier has done is he was a shotgun quarterback, really good shotgun. He'd never been under center. So we had to try to Jimmy rig some stuff and, go into and get in the shotgun for him. But this year he's going to be able to be under center and have, Ivan, tutelage of Ivan, coaching him for 4 weeks in the spring. I know that he'll be ready after these 4 weeks of going against our defense.
Thanks, Coach.
Scott Wyckoff.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Scott.
What's been the biggest focus of your staff since the end of the season, heading into camp, that you've really gotten together with your staff to really lead into this with?
I wouldn't say it's the same thing here, but it really is the same theory. Every year you look at everything. You self-analyze, you look at what you're doing offensively, defensively, special teams, how you're coaching, how you're recruiting. You start from zero. You look at everything. And so we started, Ever since, there hasn't been any breaks. We just kind of go from the beginning and just kind of look at everything that we're doing, how we can improve, how we can get better. Um, but the big thing, as we go now is just building this team of 2021, starting with the foundation of fits. Because we look at it as 4 parts. It's the winter conditioning that we can't get. We feel like our conditioning is as tough as anybody in the country. And then we go to our fourth quarters, which is kind of another grueling step. Then spring ball, then fall camp. We're in this first portion, which we were in last year too. Same thing. We've been through the first portion, and we're just excited about going to our second portion. The second portion of which is spring ball, but it's everything, Scott. We look at everything. Obviously, the great thing about it is, there's a lot of work everywhere. So we got a lot of work. But I'm encouraged. I've been encouraged by watching our guys work out. Very business-like approach. Not much talking. When you go 3-7 or whatever you want, there's no room to talk by players or coaches. We just go to work, look how we can improve.
What does it mean for you going into the spring practice, knowing that you have a player like Diego really anchoring, really not only your defense, but really your team?
I've been really encouraged by Diego's leadership. He's led more by example. A lot of things that he's done. There's a lot of things off the field that they've done, trying to carry the torch for what this team's going to be. I think they, in some of the meetings, we've had a lot of meetings. I've had meetings with the seniors myself, and just to see some of their thoughts for this year. The thing that I've been encouraged about, they've been able to see different teams. Obviously a great team and some teams that didn't do so well. So they're smart young men. They're like, for this team, this is how we want to lead. Here are some of our goals. These are the things we want to do. And so far I've been really, really encouraged, by their perception, led by Diego. As he's taught here, these are guys, these are things we have to do. I saw this team was successful because they did this. Probably these years we weren't as successful because we weren't as dialed in this portion.
For a guy like Xavier, just having this full spring camp, how beneficial will this be for him?
It's everything. It's everything for him. He needed it. It's a guy that played an Army game and wasn't even here in fall camp. When is that? That's never happened since I've been here. The guy plays an Army game and wasn't even here for fall camp. He was watching practices from the bleachers. So this is going to be great for him. And I'm actually excited that he's here. I didn't know if he was going to play lacrosse or not, so I'm excited that he's practicing. So.
Tiger Goslin has a new position. Why the change and any other position changes?
Well, we just felt like, the guys that we're going to look at quarterback, these are the guys that we're going to look at with Xavier. We feel like he's got a ton of upside, really excited about him. Jaden is a young man, and Ty are two guys that we're really excited about. Ty, came from the prep school, led us in a win versus Maps when he was at the prep school. So he's got something about him. I would say Ty is similar to Will Worth. Bigger guy, he's about 220, 215, got a big arm. Jaden's fast. He's an athletic kid. Maybe like Zach Abe, maybe a Proctor type. Masai is a really good thrower. Masai's I would put Masai like Ricky Dobbs, can spin it. Kind of a physical runner. And obviously Xavier is kind of a combination of, I think like a combination of Keenan and Malcolm. He's kind of elusive cutback, but there's some leadership stuff that he has that's very similar to Keenan. He's got the it factor.
And as we move out of the pandemic, are there any things that you did during the pandemic that you want to keep moving to the future?
I think there are times where you can meet at Zoom if maybe some things are, the hall prohibits you from getting together, where you can still meet at Zoom. I think that helps. But there's nothing like meeting in person. You know, being able to see the players in person. Some things get lost in translation that way. I know it's a good question. Meeting wise, I don't know, but practice wise, obviously, not really. Hopefully, we can go back to eating normally, like the way we normally eat. You know, everybody be vaccinated here in a little bit, so hopefully we can go back to being normal. It's because it's a big way that I build our team. A lot of teams don't eat together because your football teams are too big. You eat by position. Like breakfast might be from 8 to 9. Hey, come down and grab breakfast whenever you want. There's a buffet set up, on the way meals. But we always eat as a team because it's kind of the way I've tried to build our team unity. And last year we did that, but it was like weird. You're like in an assembly line. You're like facing one way and you couldn't look at each other. And hopefully we can get around we always had circle tables where positions can eat together and talk. And I'm hopeful after the vaccination that some of those kinds of things we can go back to being normal eating and building the team the way we normally do things.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Coach, back to the quarterback position. I mean, would you characterize it as wide open, or is Xavier far and away head and shoulders above the rest? How do you see this competition going into spring camp?
I see it as Xavier being the leader, and he's going to get every opportunity to be the quarterback, but those other guys are going to get reps. The one thing that Ivan's done a great job of over the years offensively, we normally have a lot of 2 huddles to get people ready, and so those other guys are going to get reps. We've already looked at the reps, how we're going to schedule things. The one thing about the situation, we're ready for practice. We're like chomping at the bit. We got our all of our drills, all of our scripts ready. I mean, we know how many reps so and so is going to get, and so they're all going to get reps. But it's right now Xavier's in the lead. But we're really excited about the other guys. Watching those guys run before the pause came in, really excited about Jaden. He's got some athletic skills about that kid. He's a really good athlete. Ty, like I said, we were excited about him coming from the prep school because he led, the Naps to win over Maps. And so watching him play, he's a big physical kid, can spin it, got a really, really good arm. Again, similar to Will. And Masai we feel like similar to Ricky. Really quick release, physical runner. So we like all 4 of the quarterbacks, but Xavier's in the lead right now, Wags.
Well, I know that Xavier fell behind a bit by not being able to practice with the team until late August. How did you feel he developed over the course of the season? Obviously, he started against Army and did some good things. Did you feel he came a long way, but then what does he still need to work on? What can he improve upon? I'm sure there's a lot he needs to learn.
It was just hard, Wags, because, it's like the foundation of how we teach option football. You start off with the triple under center. That's the foundation of everything we do. And so with such a short time, and you didn't have for camp, and thinking that he's a shotgun quarterback, we're teaching him how to take, snaps under center, that we had to kind of manipulate the offense a little bit and do stuff in the gun that's not really us. We've dabbled in it to kind of keep people off balance, but our core has to be under center. That's where all of our stuff starts, and so by necessity, just the way it was last year, we had to be in the shotgun. So he did as good as you could do in the shotgun, but he wasn't able to develop under center as much because we weren't doing this under center. We were in the shotgun a lot for him, but he's spent a ton of time, under center in practice, But like I said, the under center live stuff, he didn't get much of, but he's come a long way. His knowledge of the offense. We've had some walkthroughs and different things, and I'm really, really encouraged by his leadership.
And the sophomore quarterbacks, Ty and Jaden, I'm guessing they did not play any JV games. Did you feel like the loss of JV games hampered their development? Because that's one area where you can get your young guys game experience and actually see them under, live ammunition and see how they perform. I mean, and I know you can't see too much when they're on a scout team. Did you feel the loss of JV games was a developmental loss?
I mean, it all was wise. I mean, last year obviously was a different year, and there's so many steps in our process in developing our team. JV is one of them, you know what I mean? And so when the product doesn't look the same, it's because their steps were missed. And that was definitely one of the steps. But it is what it is. We didn't have it. So we didn't, started from January 1st or whenever we got back, and whatever time we had, we tried to use that time to develop. But losing that time did hurt, but I mean, that's over with.
Joe Miller.
How's it going, Coach? I wanted to talk about, obviously you guys put out a depth chart the other day. I wanted to ask you how much, as far as last year's, if you graded out the players, how much of an impact does that have on the current depth chart? And since you haven't had much to do in the time between when you finished games and, started the spring campaign, is that more of a reflection of last year's performances or what you expect going forward from some of these players?
That's a great question. A lot of it is last year, but a lot of it is we've been gathering data from when we started working out. So we couldn't watch our guys lift because only a small amount is allowed to go in the weight room. But the running every day, we're out there watching our guys run. And you're gathering data from all of that. Who looks good running, who touches the line, who's quitting on runs, who's not giving forth 100% efforts, just all of that. So we actually got in a few fourth quarters, already, which I'm grateful. It was Coach Fitz's suggestion, just so we could get more evaluation on guys. And so, we were doing that a little bit. We started it earlier this year. So I'm grateful that happened because of this pause. We were allowed to get into some fourth quarters. So all of that stuff, Joe, last season, how they've been working out since January, in our meetings that we have, before we go out, we talk about all those things. Coach Fitz tells us the runs, and then I always tell guys go out and we're watching everything. You're taking inventory of everything when you're out there and when you watch guys, when they're running, who moves well, who's fighting through pain, who's fighting through fatigue, and all that stuff. And so it was a culmination of last season and the off-season workouts.
What position group do you look at and say, I think we're close there? And what position group do you look at and say, because you have a lot of people that played last year because obviously sustained some injuries and had some guys out. What position do you look at and say we're close, and what position group do you look at and say this has to get better?
Well, I'm going to give you the coaches. Every position needs to get better. I don't know if we've arrived anywhere. Some places you like your depth more than others, but maybe the inside linebacker spot. Just off the top of my head with Diego and Tama and Johnny Hodges coming along, and Troy Adams. Maybe that spot, but I think when you have the team we had last year, nobody's arrived, man. We're there's none of that. There's none of those kind of talks going on at our school right now. Nobody's arrived.
You kind of touched on it earlier, and we talked a lot last year, obviously on the offensive side, and the lack of, rushing yards at times from the quarterback position. Was there a conversation in the, at the end of last season to the start of spring that, hey, we can't overreact to some of these numbers. We just have to get back to what we think we do best? Because in some situations, I think coaches might look at some of those numbers and say, wow, what went wrong here that has been so successful? What was that conversation like as far as you touched on it a little bit earlier, just trying to stay back and get back to your identity?
Add an S to that. You said conversation. There have been hours and hours and hours of us debating, going back and forth, looking back at years past, looking at what we did against certain people, looking what happened. It's ongoing, Joe. I mean, it's a great question, but that's literally been what we've been talking about. Okay, why couldn't we move the ball against these guys? They did this. They didn't really do anything. And I guess those are hard parts for stuff. It's schematically, you see stuff every year. I mean, it's not like we saw like, whoa, what was that? Well, what defense was that? This year is just there's a lot of those conversations, and you tear down everything from how you're calling plays to how you're coaching it. How are people receiving it? How are people playing things now? Has it changed much over the years, the way people have played? And just go back and look at all of those things, Joe. But it's, probably one of the biggest discussions or that we had, conversations that we had in the offseason, just literally hours, just pointing back and forth on that.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Joe.
I will go to Heather Dinich, ESPN.
There. Now you got the mom look. See? I'm
Hi,
not
Heather.
Hi, Coach. I wanted to see if you could go on a little bit further about the future of what you hope to see this fall in terms of a sense of normalcy. And if you could just kind of explain the logistics as if your players, do they have to get the vaccine? Like what's going on in terms of that?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think they have to, because I don't think it's FDA approved, but I guess they're encouraged. I think the majority of them, Heather, are getting it. In fact, I think they're through a third of the brigade. 2 battalions have gone through. I know most of the guys are getting it. I'm hoping, Heather, will be back to normal, whatever that is. But I'm hoping that fans will be able to come back. I'm planning on practicing normal. Just like I said, we've had a Super Bowl, we've had an NBA championship, we've had a college football championship. There have been literally thousands of people participate, and I don't know how many tests athletes have taken, probably millions of tests. And, fortunately, nobody's, at least to my knowledge, college player, nothing's happened. And so I feel better about moving forward. I feel like things are going to be normal with it, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful they'll go back to whatever that is. I don't know if it'll be full capacity stadiums. I've seen articles that people are talking that way. I don't know if that would be the case, but I'm hopeful that there'll be some fans, however the county or states determine that. But the way, as far as football, I see it for us being normal, Heather. I see us being normal, practicing, tackling. Because I always, and early on, I used to ask our medical people, like I'd watch the NBA play, and it was kind of weird to me. Like, wait a minute, you play out that whole time, but then they go on the sidelines and then they sit apart from each other with masks on. Like, wait a minute, those guys are just breathing on each other for 3 hours. And I don't think anybody knew back then. I think we're still trying to figure it out. So if we have to go back, but we wore masks on the sidelines, that's fine. But hopefully the football part of it, practicing and prepared for it, will be the same.
And then I wanted to ask you to go back when you were talking about eating together and what it's been like in terms of standing in a line. What building is that at? How are they eating? Are the positions not at those circular tables right now? And when will that be able to go back to normal, if you have any idea?
Yeah, nobody eats together. I mean, they're not in King Hall. They eat at their rooms. They got takeout stuff. But I was talking about on the road. We normally sit at circular tables. I mean, just eating at a banquet room. But it's by design. You sit by position. It's kind of a time for guys to obviously, build bonds and relationships. But the way we had to eat at the last year was, they're all rectangular tables, but they're in a row. Obviously, you grab your food like an assembly line. Nobody's serving you, plastic takeout food, and you go and sit down, and so you can't really. You have your mask on, but it's not like you can really talk to somebody. They're kind of far away, and you're like yelling at them. And I guess it's the best you could do, and that's the way you had to do things. And we would do it the same way if they told us that's the way you keep people healthy. But it's hard to build a team camaraderie when everybody's looking this way and you're not allowed to look backwards, or you look straight ahead and don't breathe on anybody. But hopefully I think that's going to change though, Heather, once everybody's vaccinated. I don't know that. I got to ask our medical people, but it'll be interesting to see once the whole brigade is vaccinated, what does that mean for us? Can we go back to eating normal? I don't know.
And then my last question for you was, I'm so curious as to how coaches are truly judging last season. I hear you're getting a lot of questions about your offense and your quarterbacks, etc. And I understand the last half of the season was a true struggle. But good, bad, or ugly, how do you put that into the context of playing during a pandemic? I mean, isn't there some sort of take it with a grain of salt measure as to who was in that game, who was out that game, who was sick, what were you facing in the opponents, etc.? And how do you truly get a fair measure of what last season was like for anyone?
Well, I've spent a lot. It's a great question. I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, a lot of it. And I look back at teams last year early on. I mean, you saw some teams come out of the woodwork like, whoa, where'd they come from? Teams beating Big 12 teams, and some teams that had great years that maybe, like I said, came out of the woodworks, and maybe some teams that weren't doing as well. And then you see how people were able to prepare. So I just kind of feel like, if you had maybe less restrictions, maybe you weren't in a conference, maybe your state was a little bit, you had more freedom in what you could do. Maybe your school allowed you to do more. I thought the preparation was different. Unless if you're better than people, you're just better. I mean, the top people are always going to be better, but I thought the other part, you could see some teams that came out. And as I look back, did these guys have spring practice, or did they practice in the fall? And the majority of them did. So as I look back at last year, Heather, I know what happened. You know what I mean? Like I said, Wags asked, well, I learned the hard way and not practice. I knew what would happen. I've been baking this cake for a long time. I knew when without the flour, I knew it was going to be flat, but I made that choice. I made the choice. So I know what happened, but it's still hard to look at the record. It's hard. It's hard. It is really, really hard to see what happened. It's hard to lose to those other two guys. It's hard the way we played. I mean, all these guys that we play in our league every year, I mean, they all beat the crap out of us, and we were a bad football team. So I knew our preparation what it normally was. And so why would I expect our team to be any better? I was relating. It's kind of funny because I was talking to our staff today. To me, it's kind of like me telling our team to go play in a golf tournament, but you didn't have any practice rounds, or you don't go in the golf range. And, and then in round, in the third hole, hey, let's try this. Ivan, try these new clubs. Let's see how that works. Crap, that doesn't work. Your hole 6, hey, you know what? Let's change your swing. I mean, if you don't prepare, it's not going to be the same. So I think a lot of guys recognize that your preparation wasn't the same. And I've had a lot of conversation with a lot of my, fellow coaches. But as a competitor, nobody cares. And as in this profession, nobody cares. Like all they see is your record. They don't care what you did, how you did it. They just know you didn't win. And so, but I understand that it's part of the profession, and I don't have any complaints, but we'll have the flower in this year.
Kendall Griggs, do you have anything? WNAV, I know you had a question. WNAV News.
Hi, Coach. This is Connor Dory with 1430 WNAB. How are you today?
Hey, Connor, how you doing?
I'm doing well. So Heller kind of took one of my questions that I was going to ask, but I'll reword it, I guess. So with the pause that's going on with Navy sports due to the positive tests going around campus, how is that impacting kind of your preparation for spring practice? Are you having to kind of keep that in mind in case, like, if that happens again, where an outbreak kind of happens or more positive tests happen throughout the campus? Will you have to kind of plan to where, oh, if the team can't practice for like a week or 2 weeks, this will change how practice and training goes from now on?
No, I think kind of like I said, I'm encouraged because we're being vaccinated. You know, I mean, like I said, a third of the brigade's been vaccinated already. But I guess the approach we're taking on, whenever they can tell us we can go, we're going to go. And if they tell us to stop, we're going to stop. And then when we can go, we're going to go again. But I feel, I don't know if this is right, but this is how I feel. I don't know if anybody was more cautious than I was last year as a football coach. Maybe they were, but I think I went overboard as far as making sure people were safe. And I, like I said, if I was to go back in time with the same information that I had back then, I would do the same thing. But what I see now, and just the people, like with all the sports that are playing and all the tests and, you know, this age group and demographics and people, I feel better that we can go and press forward. So I don't, like I said, I don't feel reckless and taking those chances with people. I mean, last year I had a few guys quit because of COVID. They were concerned that, you know, good players that decided, Coach, I don't know what this means. I don't want to play anymore. And I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think people are feeling a little bit better. I think, I don't know. So I guess my answer, Connor, is if they tell us to stop, we're going to stop. And they tell us we can begin again, we're going to begin and we're going to practice. But we're just gonna press forward.
Okay. And I guess you kind of answered that, what I was about to ask as well after that. Are you guys also going to operate under the thought that COVID, like safety protocols, you know, social distancing, masks would still be in place on the sidelines during summer and fall going into the season?
Yeah, I'd imagine that stuff won't stop. You know, I'd imagine that, you know, we still have to wear the mask, social distancing. Like we're lifting, we figured it out now how to do it. You know, the capacity in the weight room and how to spread you out in the racks, certain amount of guys in there. So I feel good about our protocol and being able to lift weights and run. You know, coming in the locker room, we're still working on that. How many guys can come in there and all that stuff. But if we were to go back to that, I feel really good about it. The difference is the football part of it. We're not putting the shields up in front of our faces and not blocking anybody. We're gonna practice. And like I said, I'm at peace with doing that. So the football side of it will be normal. On the sidelines, if we're wearing masks and social distance, if that's what, you know, CDC tells us to do and what the academy tells us to do, we'll definitely do that.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Coach. That's all I had to ask.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make one more pass through. If you have a question, we'll limit it to 2 this time, but Mike James.
Coach, kind of changing gears, you know, the last year has been difficult for everyone, but I imagine it was probably particularly hard up at Naps. Have you had conversations with the coaches up there about keeping morale up and helping the guys kind of keep their eyes on the prize?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mike. Yes, we talk with them daily, and Zoom has been awesome too, obviously, and Google Meets, because we can communicate with them and see them just to, you know, the coaches to check and see how things are doing. But it's getting tougher. You know, the transfer portal, the one-time transfer, it's making it hard, man. It's making it hard to recruit, making it hard to keep people. Like I said, it's not bad for the players. I mean, people have options, and so, you know, it's always been hard at NAPS, and it's meant to be that way. The Naval Academy is hard; it's meant to be that way. But now with people having more options, it's getting harder and harder to keep guys. And I've tried to explain even to our senior leadership and to captains and admirals and superintendents over the years to understand, like, how come a kid can understand going up to NAPS, why are these guys, how come they don't always want to be here or could think about leaving? And I try to explain to them, we're recruiting these guys. We're recruiting against other schools. So can you imagine that, you guys recruiting guys to a bona fide Division I school, and wait, what's the other place I'm going to? The prep school? Where's that at? Now, what's the weight room look like? You know what I mean? So just trying to tell the senior leadership and people over the years, that it's hard to keep people there just because of what you just said. And I don't want it to be easier because, like I said, the toughness of the prep school is really, I think, helped them become better football players, better leaders. And being here so long, some of the best football players that have gone on to be great leaders in the Navy and Marine Corps have come through the prep school. But it's hard. It's getting harder. And with social media and everything, it's even much harder because they have access to all their other options that they had before they came to the prep school.
Going back to Xavier a little bit, obviously we saw the running ability he has. He has a little bit of Malcolm in him. But I think also, like Malcolm, he needs to develop as a passer. We didn't see him throw the ball a lot in games. Is there going to be some emphasis on, developing him as a passer the way you did with Malcolm a couple springs ago?
Yeah, and Ivan will do a great job with that, along with, Coach Stutzman. They'll work with him, and yeah, and he recognizes that. He's got to get first and foremost, get better at, the fundamentals of the triple, which we're excited about. But then, yes, he's got to get better at throwing the ball too. You have to be able to throw the ball. And again, we've looked at a lot of years of tape, and you go back and look at 2019, obviously Malcolm threw the ball, ran really well, but he threw the ball well too. And so we got to get Xavier to that point where he feels comfortable, where we can throw the ball and be effective and keep that threat alive, and because you don't want 11 guys up on the line of scrimmage. But this kid's a hard worker, Wags. He's I'm really excited about it. The kid has the it factor, and I'm sure as we're talking, I don't know what they're allowed to do because we can't see them. They can't work out together, but I know he's working on all that.
And then with regard to Tiger, obviously being the other quarterback that had game experience, obviously you must feel good about these other quarterbacks, but do you also think Tiger has a chance to be a really good slot back?
I do. I feel like he can be a little bit, Jared Bryant. He's an athletic kid. He's tough. He's all in. He's a great kid. Tiger Gosslin's one of the best kids on our team, just a great leader. The kid's been through a lot. And, when I talked to him about moving, Coach, I'll do whatever it takes. Obviously, he wasn't happy, but Coach, whatever it takes, I'll go wherever. And he's embraced it. He's continued to lead. When he was told that he wouldn't start and that Xavier was going to start, he was doing the best he could to help him in the Army game. He's just the Tiger Gosslins of the world, the type of kids that this school is about. Just true leadership. It's would have been easy to go and sulk and complain, but he's been a trooper, man.
Scott Wyckoff.
Yeah, Coach, what's it been like having the new facility going into the first full season, now having that?
It's awesome. And so we're not in there right now because when they took the pause, I told our coaches, we probably should stay out of the academy until they let us back in. But we've been actually meeting in there because we've been able to meet because you can stay spread out, so there's some big conference rooms in there you can meet. But we got a virtual tour stuff that we're using in recruiting. It is lights out in recruiting. We're able to, most of the recruiting are like this, virtually, and they can't come here. But when we show them the building and what it's like. I mean, it's pretty nice. You know what I mean? Just not so much the players haven't been in there much, just we've been using one of the rooms as coaches, but they're about done. Most of the stuff's done. It's not official yet, but so more so when we get to use it when it's completely open, it's going to be awesome. It's pretty sweet. Most of it is pictures and virtual pictures of it, but the surround sound, the Cinemax Theater, nobody has one like that in the country. They're going to get them quickly though. I know when SEC schools see this, it's coming. But our team meeting room is one of a kind. It's Chet and what he built there is pretty sweet.
So it's already had an impact.
Oh yeah, in recruiting it's been awesome. Like I said, it's been awesome. And then when we can use it completely, it's going to even be better.
Is that it for you, Scott?
Yes, thank you.
Heather Dinich.
Hey, may as well sneak in one about the playoff. Where you stand on it after going through what everybody saw last season from the selection committee, which raised a lot of questions. I thought consistently inconsistent is what I've heard a lot of. What do you think about the system moving forward, and does it have to expand in order for a group of 5 team to get a shot at this thing?
It looks like it, Heather. I mean, I don't know what else you could do what Cincinnati did. You know what I mean? Cincinnati played well. It looks like it's going to have to expand. I watched a lot of Saban stuff, and some of the stuff he says, there's some merit to what he says, that it has to expand. But what will happen to the other bowl games? Where more kids opt out? I don't know. I just don't know what that number is. I watch a lot of your stuff too, and just the numbers, and some of the discussions that you've had with other people. I haven't put too much thought into it, but I agree that I think it has to expand for a group of 5 to be in there, because Cincinnati almost had the perfect season and still didn't make it, and they weren't moving up, and they weren't going to move up, and so it probably needs to expand. I'm grateful it worked out though, because I thought the best team won, but I think it definitely has to expand for a group of 5 to make it.
We talk all the time about quarterbacks, but you also got some good skill position guys coming back, but this offensive line looks like it's being rebuilt. I'm looking at the depth chart, and there's some young guys on there, the Mod Bradleys, and Fradiani never really established himself. Bernacchi. Can you kind of talk about the offensive line and getting them right?
I'm just going to say this because I don't want, like I said, when you have the record we had last year, nobody should be big-headed or anything. But this O-line has a chance potentially to be the best O-line we've had in years. So, but it's all potential. Potential doesn't mean anything. So I'll stop there because I don't want to pump anybody up, but because these guys got to work. But really, really excited watching these guys run. We're as big as we've ever been, and they can move. But can they play? We'll find out.
Wags, anything else?
Well, I guess I should ask about is Xavier off limits to tackling, and what about these other quarterbacks? I imagine the young quarterbacks need to get hit.
Nobody's off limits. We're playing this spring. We're blocking, tackling. We're gonna cut block, and we're gonna play normal. And so it's like I said, the flour is we're putting in the flour in this cake.